right, so this is the video where we answer the questions folks asked over the course of our series on Anabaptism. And at the beginning, a little humble pie, I want to correct a statistic I gave in the video, What Makes Anabaptists Different? I said there are about 4 million Anabaptists in the world today, and a viewer sent me a different statistic from the Mennonite World Conference that says it's more like 2.1 million.
So you're just off a couple of million.
Yeah, no biggie. Well, let's get to the questions. First one, when will there be a video on core doctrines on the nature of God and the definition of salvation? There is probably not going to be a video on those topics. The Bruderhof position and my position personally is that talking about the nature of God is kind of presumptuous, and as to who's going to be saved, well, that's really God's call and not ours. And this probably answers one of the other questions. Do you think the Pope or Roman Catholics are saved? Well, all I can say is I really hope everyone is saved because I have many friends who are Roman Catholic and I love them dearly.
Agreed. I like to focus on the parts of the Bible that I do understand. There's plenty there to keep you busy for a lifetime. Next question. Thank you, Rich and Maureen, for this vid. I did not know you are Anabaptist just like me. Could you tell more about your connections to the Hutterites? Well, how long do you have? Real quick, the founders of the Bruderhof were extremely inspired by the writings of the Anabaptists of the Radical Reformation, and that was especially the Hutterite writings and background. When they found out that they were still living in community in the United States and Canada, they visited them, that was Eberhard Arnold in particular, and united with them as an entire church. But differences arose over time, mostly in regards to whether community life together should be based on inherited tradition or should be open to new expressions and new ways of doing things.
Right. Traditions are wonderful until they become stifling and restrictive, and then they should be abandoned. Next question. Hello, I have a question about your statement at 451 claiming that Anabaptists had no part in persecutions. How then would you explain the Munster Rebellion of 1534? There's a popular podcast on the subject by Hardcore History, episode 48, Prophets of Doom, love Dan Carlin, that specifically mentions Anabaptists as having been the instigators. Being Anabaptist myself, I understand that there were many different groups during that period claiming to be Anabaptist, and not all of them adopted the entire confession, so they probably talking about the Schleitheim statement. However, my understanding is that this happening significantly dampened the acceptance of Anabaptism throughout Europe for hundreds of years afterwards. Yes, the Munsterites. It's true they gave Anabaptism a very bad name, but I would say that they were an aberration and not representative of true Anabaptism. It's true that radical so-called Anabaptists tried to establish community of goods in the city of Munster between 1532 and 1535, and they claimed to be Anabaptists because they baptized adults. However, they lost the plot by, first of all, taking up arms. Nonviolence is a key tenet of Anabaptism, and also promoting polygamy, which is also a total non-starter. But that's a great question, and we should have mentioned the Munster Rebellion.
Well, good we brought it up now. Thank you. Another question. Aren't the Quakers, Friends Church, Anabaptists too? Well, the Society of Friends, or Quakers, were founded over 100 years after the Radical Reformation, and that was by George Fox in England. Many of their beliefs are very similar to Anabaptism. That would be like non-resistance, simplicity, refusing to take oaths, rejection of institutional Christianity, but it doesn't appear that they were influenced by earlier Anabaptists.
Right, it was an independent phenomenon in England. Next question. Thank you for producing this series. I'm finding it to be quite interesting. Most of the Anabaptists I know, Mennonites, prefer to give some sort of deference to the Bible when making decisions of lifestyle and ethics. I hear the Bruderhof speak of the need to hear from God's Spirit, but I don't hear as much about the Bible, besides Acts 2 and 4. Could you address the role of the Bible in Bruderhof life and thought? Thank you. Absolutely, we can address that. The Bible is central to our life together and to our decision making. We read it together in worship meetings and also as individuals on a daily basis. And we believe that we can be led to understand the Bible through God's grace and the working of the Holy Spirit.
Next question. Can I ask about your position on oath swearing? When you first mentioned it, I presumed you meant cursing, and that the position on not becoming a judge or juror is based on not passing judgment. Is the act of oath swearing itself also seen as wrong? If so, then what's the foundations for this, and how does this impact on other legalities, e.g. marriage or community land purchase? Well, I'd have to say in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says, do not swear at all. Let your yes be yes and your no, no. So, no, we don't take oaths. Fortunately, we're not the only ones who take this position, so in the case of the legal matters like the one you mentioned, there's the option of affirming rather than swearing.
Next question. I was wondering, why is it that Anabaptists were persecuted so viciously, given that they embraced Jesus and were therefore on the same side as the persecutors? Jews didn't embrace Jesus, so I understand why we were persecuted. I get why Protestants and Catholics didn't get along. Why did Protestants mistreat other Protestants? Was it for being insufficiently Protestanty? Protestanty. Tough question. I believe it's because they were seen as a threat to the status quo, the Anabaptists. People in power, like the Lutheran leaders of the time, they tend to want to stay in power, and the type of society Anabaptists envisioned would have decreased their power substantially. Maybe that's a bit simplistic, but I think that's kind of actually the root of most conflict. And that's why Jesus is so revolutionary. Whoever wants to be great should be a servant, the last shall be first, and so on.
Thanks to everyone for the great questions. And if you haven't yet, please do subscribe to our channel and check out our website. That's bruderhof.com. See you next time.
Yeah, new series dropping shortly.